Welcome to the Men's Collective podcast. In this space, we keep the conversations real, inspiring, and challenging you to become the man you are destined to be. Your family needs you to be better. Your friends need you to be better. We need you to be better. We are your hosts, the Average Joes. Gentlemen, welcome to the Men's Collective podcast. We are your hosts, the Average Joes. Right here is where we explore what it means to be a better man. Today's episode is going to hit deep because we're talking about something that touches every one of us at some point, and that is grief and the pain of losing someone you love. The reality of waking up and realizing life won't be the same as a universal experience, yet it's one that you can feel is so isolating, especially as a man. We're often taught to keep our emotions in check and to man up, stay strong, push forward. But is that really the best way? Is that how we truly heal, or do we end up burying the pain until it becomes something we can't control? I'm joined today by three exceptional men that happen to also be three of my very close mates, each with their own stories of loss, different backgrounds, different experiences, but all united by the realities of grief. Together we'll be unpacking the layer of what it means to grieve, to mourn, how we handle loss, and how we can support each other in those dark moments. Today, let's talk about the how-tos, how to personally deal with the pain of losing someone. For some, it's about shutting down, pushing forward. For others, it's all about letting it all out. What are the best and most effective ways of coping, and has it evolved over time? What roles does society play in shaping how men are supposed to grieve? Are we conditioned to suppress our emotions, to not show vulnerability? And if so, how does that affect our healing process? And is there really a right way to grieve? Or is it a journey that looks different to each of us? How do we navigate that path, especially when others might have expectations on how we should or shouldn't act? In today's conversation, we're not just talking about the pain of loss, but how we process it, how to heal, or sometimes how we struggle to heal. It's a conversation that's set to be raw, honest, and deeply personal. Because whether we admit it or not, grief affects us all. Another reason why this is so personal is because just a few days ago, we lost one of our own here at Average Joe's, Big Greg, whom you would recognise as the larger-than-life, flamboyant, smooth-talking legend that he was. Last week, Greg sadly was found in his home, alive no more. Greg was a huge part of us here. He was a very loud, honest, and thought-provoking voice on this panel. I personally met Greg 5 years ago when we shared a stage at a speaking event. After that, it seemed like Greg never missed an AJ's meetup. He travelled with me to the Gold Coast, Armidale, Brisbane, and many other places, launching new meetup groups wherever we needed him to. He helped me write and compile the teen edition of Average Joe's. He helped write many of the topics we've discussed over the last couple of years in all of our meetups, as well as more topics yet to be released. But more than anything, Greg was a very close friend and a great mate. Greg was a vibrant, straight-out, honest voice that we will miss here so much. And our love, support, and condolences go to his family, as this community and Average Joe's family has truly lost a legend. So sit back, take a deep breath. Join us for this powerful discussion on how we, as men, discuss how we cope with the grief of losing someone we love. Let's get started. Gentlemen, welcome. Jamie, Miguel, Mikey.
Hey, boys.
Hi, gentlemen.
How we doing?
Good to have you guys back. It's great to see all your faces, especially after such a big week.
That's not what you said before the camera started rolling, mate.
It was not so great to see you. Otherwise, good. Yeah. Thanks for joining me, fellas. Well, I'd like to give you guys the floor for the first few minutes to share your thoughts on this past week losing Greg. Jamie, I'll start with you, bud.
Thanks, buddy. Look, Greg was always at our AJ meets. You know, we used to catch up every single week. And, you know, the first memory of Greg was him making an inappropriate joke to me. And that seemed to continue.
Different Greg.
But, you know, the amazing thing with him was that even though we didn't agree on a lot of things, is that he was always thought-provoking, you know, and we did have the ability to be able to converse on things that we disagreed with without losing that friendship, you know. But not that we disagreed on everything. And the amazing, like, the heart of the man, you know, sharing things like, you know, challenges with parenting and you know, schooling for your kids and all that sort of stuff. Just how much he cared about, you know, the next generation and the boys, you know, down at the Mooloolaba meetup and all the other sort of meetup groups was immense. but it is a shock sort of thing where he became a very good mate, and I think he taught me you don't have to judge people and you don't have to agree on everything for you to be mates. So
Absolutely.
That's what AJ's is, though, isn't it?
That's exactly what it is. Greg fitted that description perfectly. Mikey, how was it for you, bud?
Yeah, it was surreal. I think the same as when you find out anyone's passed away. It's it makes you think back over the fond memories of them, and obviously the ones that you were yet to have. But yeah, it really kind of just stopped me, just going, I don't really know what to think. I don't know what to make of the whole thing. It's just happened, and okay, let's start dealing with it, I guess. So he was a great guy. We had many a fun conversation. I don't have anyone to make Trump jokes with now, but they're not going to give me the same response anyway. So yeah,
Miguel.
Mate, for the short time I did know Greg, obviously I met him the first time with you guys at Budrup Meetup, and then obviously on the podcast here. I found Greg to be someone that you could have a very healthy deliberation with. He spoke his truth. Found him quite funny. I remember getting the phone call from you, mate, and I was at my cousin's getting ready for his wedding on the Saturday, and you rang me, I think it was the Thursday or the Friday. And it's not very often that I'm speechless, but yeah, I didn't know where to, like it just really, like you said, surreal. Very, very surprised. Had a lot of knowledge, a lot of value to offer and to give. Like touching on what Jamie said too, being able to talk with someone without judging them, because Greg was larger than life, and still surreal. Like even now, thinking about it, how do you put it into words, really?
Yeah, it's definitely going to be missed, especially on the podcast. I mean, his insight, his intellect, his just that deep, calm voice, giving his perspective on something that really did make you sit back and rethink.
Perspective, hey?
Yeah.
Yep.
Definitely going to be missed. So, again, condolences to his family, and he's going to be, definitely going to be missed here on the panel. So it's going to be hard moving forward, but we will, and hence the reason for the topic, because not only has this happened to us, it happens to everybody. Everyone's going to experience loss and grief at some point. So let's get into the topic about that, fellas. Have you lost anyone close? And when I say close, I'm talking like either like a best mate or a close mate or a family member or sister, brother, anything like that. Within your inner circle, have you ever lost anyone close?
Who wants to kick it off?
yeah. I was gonna say,
Family
anyone
members,
not?
mates?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think the one that hit me the hardest was when I lost my mum. Like that was, because it was so unexpected. Like she was, I think 58 or like, anyway, I'm horrible with dates. So, but, I was just working and got a phone call from one of my mentors, and he said, he was crying, having to tell me, you know what I mean? And then I was driving on the Bruce Highway and had to pull over and just started bawling. That was very challenging, especially because, that's the people that if anything goes wrong or anything happens, your parents are the people that you help you out, sort of thing, So, and especially not having that much contact with my dad at that period of time, I was like, you've got no one to back you up. So, not that I'll be careful with my words there, but, but just not having any backup, sort of thing. You're like, oh shit, that's the people that are supposed to be there aren't there. So, and. I know we're going to go into it about all the processes and stuff like that, but I learned something very interesting about my family, well, me and my sister in particular, where yes, I bawled my eyes out, but then when I actually got up to deal with everything, I basically sort of went to stone and went, this is stuff that we need to do. So I went into full, all right, we need to organize this, we need to organize that, you know what I mean? One thing that happened that really made me appreciate mates and friendships is all my friends that I probably hadn't seen for 5-10 years all came around to Mum's house and renovated the house for us before, you know, we had to sell it off and stuff like that. Never asked for a penny. You know what I mean? So I think that when you are down, that's when you find who your true mates are. And that was something for me where I'm like, that's why having great mates is so important. You know what I mean? Yeah.
It's amazing how death unifies you, right?
Yeah.
So like when someone dies, we all get around each other, hey, and we support each other, like your mates did there.
Correct.
It's it's quite insane that it takes such a drastic thing to happen for us to come together so close, hey?
Yeah. I'll tell you the other thing too that I found really interesting is that everyone's around you trying to say something to make you feel better. And it doesn't matter what they say. It could be the most amazing thing that they say. And you want to feel better, but it's actually just them being present that makes that makes you feel better. They don't actually even have to say anything. It's spending that time together and going, if you need me, I'm right here. And you don't even have to talk to them. Like, you don't have to talk. They could just be sitting here and just being there. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah, absolutely.
That's something that I found, because sometimes people pull away because they don't know what to say. Just go see them. You know what I mean? And you don't have to say anything. You're like, sorry for your loss. That's all you need. But, you know, and if you need anything, let me know. But just being there is, I think, one of the best things that you can do.
Yeah, well, there's nothing you can say that's going to change it, is it?
Correct.
So
yeah,
why try?
Mikey, yourself, mate?
Mate, I've lost a fair few people over the years. I immediately thought to the first person that I knew that died, and that was when I was a kid. I was sitting in our kitchen playing the Sega Mega Drive, playing Sonic the Hedgehog, and my mum and dad came in and said, Granddad's friend Uncle Tony's died. And I just didn't know what to think of it. It was just, okay. Like, the brain couldn't compute. They're gone. They weren't overly, like, he was a family friend. It wasn't like it was someone I saw every day, but I just could not compute that they were gone. And I just went back and sat on the game, and it took me weeks to figure that one out. Yeah, I've lost a few friends over the years. I've grandparents. I've lost all the three of the grandparents I knew have all died, and that hit hard. But I don't know. For me, when it happens, when someone dies, it stops me, and I'll sit in that for a bit. But I'm someone that can't stop moving, so my resolution is to do something. Eventually, you'll forget about it, or it'll get a bit better, and I'll just start taking steps. I'll do something. I'll go to work. I'll go and clean the garage. I'll do something that gets my mind off of it, takes me away from it, which, I don't know, there's probably professionals would say that's not healthy, but
I do want to go down.
But they're not here, so that's okay.
Push it down.
Yeah. Bury it deep until it explodes.
Make sure we do a disclaimer at the start of this one then, because that's not a good advice.
Yeah, that's right. That's it. Don't just drink your feelings, no.
Miguel.
Mate, yeah. Family members and friends. Like my father passed away in a head-on car accident 22 years ago when Dad and Mum went over to Europe. Dad being Maltese, went for a bit of a holiday and left a bit of a shindig, and Dad's cousin was driving, come around a corner and had a head-on collision. So I had to wait. Mum was in the back of the car. Dad pretty much died instantly. But Mum had quite a few fractures and broken bones in her, so we couldn't airlift her out. And it was a bit of a process getting his body back here as well, and then inspecting the body before the funeral. And obviously coming over on the flight, bit of blood had seeped through his shirt, so then we're trying to get the shirt off. But his skin had grown through the shirt, so it was pretty, yeah. I can still see it today. I've had mates that have been killed in car accidents, like one guy in particular, Kenny, mate, he was only 21 at the time, 22 maybe. He was changing a tyre. He pulled off the side of the road into the gravel. He had his flashing lights on, had his work lights on in the back of the vehicle, and a lady thought it was an oncoming car, so why the hell this lady kept going straight forward, didn't hit the brakes or pull off to the right or the left or whatever, I don't know, but cut him in half. Hit him straight on. He was going across the back of the ute. They're just two, mate. Then there's other people that I've known that commit suicide and different things. But I think when you've got everybody around you, like you said, Jamie, you've got that support because it's just knowing that they're there, right? Like, now, my wife's my best friend. And we mate, she's not dead for the record. She wasn't bloody half an hour ago anyway. But just having her sitting there in a car and not driving, like I had to go to Dalby earlier in the week, out to the headquarters there. And, we had a bit of a discussion, but for the 7 hours of driving, it was just not that she was there, just having a hand on the leg, you know. So I get that. I think the biggest part for your grieving process is after that fact. So everyone comes out the woodworks, like you said, mate, people you hadn't seen for 5 or 10 years. The same with us. It's family, it's friends, some people you haven't seen 15, 20 years, weddings or funerals, right? But it's after the fact when they go. And everyone carries on with their life. Because that's life, right? That doesn't make them bad people or anything. But it's like, okay, what do I do now? Because now the real grief starts. Because those phone calls, like for me, when my old man died, actually, I was fishing on the Nickel River, just sitting on the side of the bank, and I spoke to Dad. He was obviously in Malta. That night I went to bed. I had a dream that Dad said goodbye to me in a cloud, and he just vanished. Didn't think much of it. Spoke to my sister the next morning. Said I had this weird dream where Dad was in this cloud, and he just went back into this cloud, and he was gone. That afternoon I got the phone call, your dad's dead. He died in a car accident. So, me, I used to come home for, I suppose, pretty much Christmas time, and everyone to get together, have a beer, whatever. And my old man knew I was coming home. I wouldn't tell him I'd try and surprise him. Dad would be sitting in the shed drinking his Emu Export stubbies, and he'd see me coming across. Oh, we lived in a rural area in Geraldton, so there was a spare paddock, and you could see cars coming and going type of thing. And Dad's thing was to give me the bird. So he'd hear my car coming, and he'd stand up with the beer in hand and give me the bird. And it wasn't until I came home for that funeral, well, flew into Perth, my sister met me, some friends, brother-in-law, and when we actually got there and I seen that shed was all locked up and cobwebs were in it, well, that's when it started to hit home. And because I worked away so much from home, you might not see him in the flesh and you wouldn't ring every day, but it was probably, to be fair, a good couple of years afterwards where it really started to sink in that he's gone, And I didn't have the best upbringing with him. So then you got all the unanswered questions. What if this and what if that? So you'd ask your uncles, like my dad's brothers, why did this occur? Why did that occur? You'd ask your mum, you'd ask older family and friends. And whilst you can appreciate having their opinion on it, like, was the answer that they gave you real? Because it wasn't coming from your dad. Do you know what I mean? And all the turmoil that you play, like I still go through things, mate, regularly. Every day still think about stuff. So, yeah, I think and like the whole, me growing up as a kid, mate, if you cried and showed emotion, you were weak. You weren't a man's asshole. I teach my boys to show vulnerability is what a real man does. So whether you're grieving by crying or you're grieving by doing fitness or grieving, I think some of the worst things you can do, mate, is alcohol. Fucking guilty, Your Honour. Been there, done that. My God. Suppress it. Wake up the next day, the demons are twice as bad. So, yeah, I think having a healthy relationship with our kids and you being vulnerable allows them permission to be vulnerable. Not so much, if you show emotion, you're weak, but they see you. Like, you know, even though I had a very rough upbringing with my father, he was still my father, and he's still on the pedestal to me to some degree, right? So if you can show that to your kids, I think you're showing them truth and, yeah.
Mm.
Touch on something you just said there, mate, about turning to alcohol. Look, most guys enjoy a drink. Most guys will have a beer or a whiskey or whatever they do. Why do you think that it turns to a sense of heaviness then? Like, why do, when men go through grief, losing someone, the idea is to try and drink it away? Because everybody knows the pain doesn't go away. The thoughts don't go away. Everyone gets it. So it gives you that numbness. But why do you think men seek that instant numbness? Because what you're saying is true, because I know you've been there a few times. You and I have had some deep chats. And I totally believe when you say you wake up the next day twice as bad.
Oh, easy.
So
Easy twice as bad.
Why don't men calculate that, you think?
I would say because from a young age we haven't been taught how to deal with that. And so monkey see, monkey do.
Deal with what? Alcohol control or grief?
Grief. Yeah. Anything go like, okay, so we've had a bad week. What do? She'll be right, mate. Have a few beers. If this has gone wrong, she'll be right, mate. Have a drink. Like, that's the general consensus with the group of friends that I grew up with, type of thing. Not saying they're bad people, but they just didn't know any better. Instead of going, okay, that went wrong. Instead of getting on the piss on a Friday night, let's have a debrief and figure out why it went wrong, how it went wrong, and how we can combat that for the following week. Do you know what I mean? Like the most logical freaking thing. How can we get a plan in place?
Well, I think part of it's getting rid of the filters, isn't it? So you can actually have more open conversations with your mates.
Logical conversations, not emotional conversations.
No, when you're drinking. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, sorry, okay, yeah.
But then afterwards, you're like, oh, yeah, mate, sorry, I was pissed, you know? Yeah. So it's that. So I think it's a couple of things where in the moment, it's so hard that it does numb it and it does sort of make you be able to handle it, because it doesn't only have to be loss or grief. It can be overwhelm, or it can be something really bad, something else has happened, or relationship problems that, you know, we all know why the guys, you know.
It's still grief though, right?
Yeah, well, it's still pain, isn't it?
100%.
Yeah. So I think that it numbs it for that moment. I think it gives you an opportunity to actually maybe talk about it more freely. So, and you've got that backup. And the reason you feel bad the next day, or twice as worse the next day, is that you knew it's not going to help you. So not only is that feeling still the same, but also you feel shit about yourself. I think that's where it comes from. You know, if you take it too far, or then if you do something stupid while you're out on it.
Never done it.
You know, that you know, then you go, oh, you know. Now also other people think, you know, it comes back to those insecurities and stuff that they were talking about, that how you see yourself as, yeah.
Well, I think there's different levels, isn't there? Like when we talk about turning to drink, there's, if you're going to sit there and drink a whole bottle of whiskey or knock off that slab of beer to try and numb it, that's one thing. The other side is to have one or two drinks and take a moment to, because alcohol is a numbing agent of sorts, isn't it? In moderation, all things in moderation. To have one or two drinks and sit there and process your emotions, that's a very different thing, hey?
Sorry, mate. Didn't mean to cut you off there,
No,
buddy.
you're-
Get you up,
cool.
walk back.
He's
80.
learning.
Yeah, like I sit there and go, if I've had a bad week, I will go out and sit and I'll have a cigar and a whiskey, and it's an enjoyment thing, but it's also a time to sit there and actually unpack that and just take a time out and just assess what's going on. If you're going to go and pour a glass of wine or have a beer with a mate and have and you're using that to have a good conversation and maybe just open up the gates a little bit. If you're going to sit there and just knock off 3 slabs, then that's a problem.
So you've created a healthy habit. Healthy habit by smoking and drinking. So anyway, for the listeners, I'm saying is it's a healthy habit. And in fact, it's in a controlled environment and you've mentally got control of it. You're not going home and just, smoking 20 cigars of a night and having a bottle, like you said, mate. So that's a
You sound
space
like
that
my
you've
wife.
created, and that's a reward. I mean, look at Michael Jordan. Like, Wayne knows Michael Jordan's the best in the world, but
Second best player ever.
his thing is whiskey and cigars. Loves them. Like one of the most healthiest athletes in the world, and even back then he still did it. So that's his relief, I suppose. I think, from my own personal experience, when you drink, mate, the pineal gland opens up and the endorphins flow in. So then you try and maintain that level of a state of mind. And of course you're chucking them back, and before you know it, she's lights out.
Do you think when men go, let's, God forbid it's ever happens to one of us, but let's take it like right at home here. Let's just say you lose your partner, right? That's a big thing for any man to lose. And for a man to lose that, the instant thought is you've lost your world. You've lost your everything because it's your partner, right? So do you think when that happens, men's thoughts are, well, what else matters now because I've lost everything? Everything was in them. So when they have that train of thought, oh my God, well, nothing else matters now, I don't care. Do you think that whole I don't care is the drive? Because if in their minds their world has now gone, they don't care about the consequence or the result of anything that happens. So therefore, decision making goes right out the window.
Absolutely, 100%, mate.
So how do you say to a guy, stay on track and keep caring?
Come to AJ's.
That's
No,
actually-
in all honesty, mate, it's again, it comes back to what you've been educated on from when you were younger, I suppose. But then as you get older, you can't keep blaming your past and your youth. Then you've got to look for other things to self-educate, to take yourself to the next level. Like for me, I know undoubtedly my wife is the glue in our family, 100%. She's the one that we can all lean on, cry on, whatever. And I'm the tough love. And it's funny you say this because I had this discussion with my two older kids, mate, about 3 weeks ago. How difficult do you think it would be if something happened to Mum? How would we cope? Not cope. How would we live? And when I said how would we live, not just getting by every day and being in a family unit because I'm their dad and they're my kids, but how would we flourish? Like what would need to change for us to be grateful that we've still got each other? And how would you would never replace Christine by any means, but there'd have to be a lot of change from the kids and a lot of change from me to have that nurturing and that love in that house. And it's stuff that I've realised.
That's an interesting.
Sorry. Well, what Miguel said about coming to AJ's actually is true because in our AJ's group, there is a guy who lost his wife suddenly. So there was no sort of really lead up to it and she got sick and lost his wife in a week. And they were fully in love and, all the rest of it. And they had a kid together too. So it's like horrible situation, yeah. But you talk to him now and he's remarried and he's happy and, they've regained that family group. So I think sometimes seeing the light that it is possible for other people can help you go, well, if they've done it, I can do it too, And it doesn't mean that you have to forget those people that you loved. It's but that is in the past and they would want you to be happy. So, there is also other people out there that can love you. So
You never forget. You learn to live with it.
yeah.
I learned that when my father died. All these other people, oh, you'll be right, mate. You'll get over it. You never get over it, but you learn how to deal with it. And on the part where you're saying, Jamie, to move on, then the mind games of guilt start coming into play, right? Am I worthy of having another partner? Like, I'm guilty because I'm cheating on this partner. Well, your partner's passed. You're not being guilty, and you deserve to be happy. My mum never found anyone else after my father passed away. It was 22 years ago. Never been with another person.
Do you think it comes down to giving yourself permission to move on?
Exactly what I'm talking about, mate.
Yeah.
100%.
So how do you think someone is to let go of that guilt? Do you think guilt's the right word?
Yeah, in an instance, like, unless we're going to go down a rabbit hole here, but yeah, absolutely guilt. In some instances, some people, and if people have talked to me about it, they feel guilty for moving on because they've married this person, they've had kids with this person, to death do us part, blah blah blah. Well, death has parted you, so you can be happy and you can move on and find another companion, But then it's all the outside stuff too, all the outside voices being from other family members or your children or whatever it may be. Did you really love them? Because if you did, why'd you move on? I've seen it. I've heard it amongst my own family, not with uncles, aunts, and cousins and bits and pieces. So it's all right for them to come and say something, right, and chuck that in your face, but they're not the one at night crying themselves to sleep or going to bed cold. You know what I mean?
Do you think there's anyone out there that can legitimately say to their partner, like for example, Lisa and I, do you think there's someone out there that can legitimately say, in my example, hey babe, if I was to die, I don't want you to move on with somebody else? I'm pretty sure everybody would deep down go,
you'd want them to be happy.
If I die, please remarry, please find someone, please.
Let me think about that.
If I die, please, whatever you do, don't ruin someone else's life.
So, guys, tonight,
I was waiting for it. I swear to God,
tonight I'm quite certain tonight Mikey's going to die. If your wife hears that, mate, you're
No, I've got a week until this is released. I'm good.
Enjoy your last
Week
week,
to
mate.
pack my bags.
There will be a single lady available, guys.
Yeah, that's it. But on the remarrying thing, right? When my grandmother passed away, my grandfather would have been mid-70s, late 70s, and within a year he was dating someone, a lady, and we were all like, "Oh, gross, man!" Like I remember Christmas, we're sitting around the table as the family, and he's holding hands, and they're all lovey-dovey, and we're all like, "This is this is bad." But I can, looking back now, I can actually see where he wanted to be happy.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
Especially at that age, right?
100%.
Yep.
I'll tell you what, though, my grandparents, my granddad died a week after grandma died.
Wow. Broken heart?
Yeah.
Yep.
Damn.
Serious grief.
I actually believe that kind of stuff's true.
Yep.
That you can die of a broken heart.
Yeah. So met, got married quickly, war times, all the rest of it, together the whole life. And then, she died. And then he died a week later.
I've heard plenty of stories like that.
Wow. I want to go back to something you said, Miguel, about you saying that you had a chat with your kids during the week about if Christine was to go,
Yep.
right, her being the glue. When we travelled last year, Lisa typed out a whole bunch of like logins and passwords and processes on things in our computer and all that kind of stuff, and left it with her mother as a
Succession plan?
yeah, like as a just in case. Like,
Yep.
we don't want to think this way. We don't want to, obviously we don't want this to happen. But if something was to happen, here's a process and here's a way of getting access to things. After that, Lisa came and spoke to me about it and said, "Hey, it's probably good for you to know that as well, because if something was to happen to me, like, because Lisa knows all our passwords. I know anything. Lisa knows all of our.
We know that, mate.
No." I know some things. I don't know passwords. I don't know bank details. I don't know anything of that. Lisa knows everything. And she said to me, "It's probably good if you went through that too, because if something was to happen to me, you should know this." And it got me thinking, and it can come across as a morbid thought, but do you think it's wise for men to know, or no, I don't want to use the word prepare, but do you think it's wise for men to go, what if it really did happen? Is there anything in my life that's prepared to go, if I lost my partner, I can pick up and keep moving forward? Or do you think it's a morbid thought to go, I don't want to get in that track. I don't want to think what it's like without her. Because wisdom kicks in and goes, I'm actually glad she wrote all this out, because it's all there in a safe, and it would you don't want to think this way, but it would definitely solve a heck of a lot of
So
searching.
I've seen my mother go through it when Dad died, mate. And the amount of repetitive meetings, and just even with the banks, when she was closing down certain things,
Yep.
the death certificates that she had to supply, and like, I get it, it's a formal process, right? So you got to go through that. But it was a repetition, like Telstra, all that type of stuff, for freaking years. Literally. It wasn't just, here it is, here's a proof, here's a death notice, here's a death certificate. It was ridiculous what she went through. The fact of life is we're all going to die. It's pretty simple. Our daughter, one of the biggest things she hated was talking about death. Like, it used to freak her out, even saying the word. Like, literally had to tell our boys and just be very careful as to who was around. Like, I just have to work through this with you. There's no way around it. It's going to happen, and you're going to have to face it sometime. So, I think succession planning is really healthy because it'll also show you where you're not at yet and what you need to do to get that succession plan ready.
You don't think the person's going to take it as a bit of a you're preparing to knock them off? Hey, honey,
Christine's probably
just
waited
get
for
ready,
me to do that for years, mate. She's wanted a free freaking exit strategy, the poor thing.
she's been asking you for a long time.
100%.
Can you just write all
No,
this
I
down?
mean, like, it's well, it all comes down to the internals of that relationship too, right? Like, if you've got a completely open relationship and you talk to your partner about anything and everything, it shouldn't come as a surprise. But I know of people whose, say, husband works in a mine. Ask his wife, what does he do in the mine? No idea. Doesn't know he's a plumber, electrician, an operator. No freaking idea. Which blows my mind, surprises me. So I think, yeah, mate, we've got succession plans. You have to have them in place. There's stuff there. But we actually need to update that succession plan a fair bit, to be fair, because there's certain things that Christine wouldn't know about business deals that are pending, this, that, blah, blah, blah. And if they were to come off, who are the partners involved in it and who gets what? Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's also helpful because you want
Streamline.
you want to give them what their wishes would be. Like, you want to give them the send-off that they want. And if you haven't spoken about that, it's you making decisions that are really second-guessing. Like, I actually had to ring people and say, which it's kind of against, I think if there's a funeral, it's a celebration of life. Doesn't matter whether you like them or not. But I had to call people and say, look, we've spoken to the family and I don't think that you should attend because I don't think mum would want you here.
So I think that's completely fair. I had a cousin that recently reached out. Like, I've had Facebook for, I don't know, 10 years, whatever, but I've only been active on it for about 2 because of the business. So I had a cousin of mine reach out to my wife, say, hey, can you just let Miguel know that blah, blah, blah has passed away. It was her mum. And so I just started typing back to her. I got in contact with her. Hey, mate, thanks for that. Yeah, I did hear through the grapevine. I'm not coming to the wedding because it had nothing to do with
Funeral.
Sorry, the funeral, my goodness. Not coming to the funeral because I'm not going to rock up there like half of the other family members will and grieve to show face for their own self-preservation. I didn't get on with her, haven't spoken to her in 20 years, and that's where I'm at. And since then, myself and that cousin, who also haven't spoken for, 20, 25 years, now speak quite frequently. And she respected what I said. She got it. No dramas. There was no animosity between either of us. It's like, mate, I didn't speak to her when she was here. We didn't get on. Had big points of, different points of views on things. It is what it is.
Mm. But the point is that I don't know whether that is, like, generally it probably yes, but if you don't know, like if it's not planned out, then you don't know if you're fulfilling their wishes, so it is so helpful.
So can I ask you guys a question? Because Pip asked me this probably a month ago. We're in the car and she said, what would you want when you're gone? Would you want to be buried, cremated? What do you want?
Has she started cooking you mushrooms?
And that's
mate?
right.
Or-
And immediately I threw the drink out the window. I just but my response was like, I'll be here forever. You'll be right. Do you guys have plans? Do you know what you want when you go? My only hope is that it's in my sleep peacefully. Other than that,
You don't want to go out with a bang, mate.
depends who
Could be
who it is.
Depends who's banging.
Could be like Matthew McConaughey's dad, on top of his.
Mate, how good was that?
That was so good.
How good was that?
Yeah.
So Matthew McConaughey's parents divorced and married 3 times to each other.
Really?
Fair dinkum.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah, and he died making love to
To his wife.
his wife.
Gosh.
Died of a heart attack.
Wow.
Yeah, that would be my second option. Yep.
Look, I think
Asphyxiation.
Buy a pillow, of course, right?
100 pillows, yeah.
That joke was in memory of Greg.
Yeah.
God, could you imagine if Greg was on this podcast with us today?
He'd be loving it.
Pulling some big jokes.
He'd be loving it.
His laugh would be echoing through.
Yep.
He would too. A big belly laugh. I can hear it now.
The closest person in my life that I've lost would be my grandfather, and that's now I think coming to 15, close to 15 years ago, and he was such a major player in my life, and it happened. Started when I was about 18. I grew up with him, obviously as a grandfather that was still present, just with normal things, but he became my mate at about 18, and I spoke at his funeral, and when I did, I was getting up to give the talk, and I'm not going to say, actually, you know, it's an interesting way of phrasing. I was going to say I'm bad at giving these things, but it might even represent that I'm good at it. I don't know. What I mean by that is that I get very emotional when death and things like that, like losing Greg actually has hit me this past week. It's actually been quite a big thing. Every day I've had that time during the day where I've gotten a bit teary just thinking about him, just going, you bastard, like, why'd you have to go? Like, I loved you here, mate. I loved having you here. Why did you have to go? When I lost my grandfather, I spoke at his funeral. I was getting up to talk, and I can't remember who it was. I think it was my uncle. But he said, it's all good, mate. Stay strong, you know, like keep strong. You can do it. Be strong. What does he mean? What do people mean when they say be strong? Does it mean not cry? Does it mean keep it together? Like when you lose somebody and your response to them is, mate, come on, it's all good, stay strong. What do they mean by strong?
Depends who you're saying it to, and depends on who's saying it. Right, so the general consensus that you'd hear from a bloke, harden up, stay strong.
As in don't cry?
Yeah, 100%. Harden up, stay strong. But stay strong to me, if I'm saying to someone now, you're going to go through a grieving process, but stay strong. Stay on your path. Don't deter. Just keep moving forward.
So strong means what?
Keep moving forward.
Yep.
Don't fall off the wagon. Your life's not over. It's just the next chapter of your book, mate.
So do you give... Sorry, Mike, you going to say something?
Yeah, no, I was wanting to say it's about staying strong, as in physically keep doing what you're doing. Like we were talking about this today. Like one of the things about death is that change that has been thrust upon you that's instant, irreversible. And as people, we're usually not that good at dealing with change. And for death, that's something that it's a big change, right? We're never going to see them again. We think about what we should have done, what we could have done, what we were going to do, all those routines that you have that you no longer have. You've got to find a new way forward. And staying strong is to, when you don't know what to do, because when change happens, you don't know what to do. It's just taking a step somewhere. Take a step forward. And once you start to move, you'll slowly figure it out. It gets better in the sense that life, you'll find new routines. You'll find your new normal, as it were. You'll never forget that person that's died. You'll still have those moments where years on, you'll have a little moment where it's a birthday and anniversary, a song comes on, you go to that place and you'll just go, I remember that.
Yeah.
I think for me there was two things where especially in that situation, I would take it as stay strong as don't let your emotions overtake
Sabotage.
your ability to be able to talk, because you see it sometimes where people are so emotional they can't get the words out that they want to say, and that's probably going to be a regret. You know, they're like, I couldn't say what I wanted to say, you know, which is tough. Do you know what I mean? The other thing is staying I see it as it's important to stay strong in front of your family because,
So again, you're saying don't cry.
no, you can cry, yeah, but don't
But keep
lose
moving.
control.
don't let that emotion overtake your ability to what you need to do.
Yeah.
Because you're allowed to be sad, you're allowed to cry, you're allowed to show emotion, but you can't let it overtake you
Yes, really
because you're the leader of your family. Now, if you want to break down and be like sobbing to your mates, that's what they're there for. But your family looks up to you.
Yep.
And if they're weak, they are holding on to, we've got the leader, we've got the person who, our rock of our family. So I don't think it's always a bad thing for you to be strong, but you're allowed to show emotions, you're allowed to be vulnerable, but don't let it override what you need to do and your responsibilities.
I agree with you. I think when you look at going down that path about emotions, I think one of the things that we need to understand as men is it is totally okay to be emotional, right? But I think when it comes to emotions is that we need to understand that it is us that are in control of our emotions. It's not our emotions that are in control of us. And especially when it comes to things like grief, grieving, mourning because you've lost somebody. Do you think then if you are the one in control, do you think if you lose someone, you set yourself a time aside to go, right? Because Mikey said at the start, one of the things he's found in the past that's helped him is to just keep busy. Okay, just keep focus on whether it be work. And a lot of the time for men, it is work. Just get back in, get stuck into the job. And then it'll take a song or something like what Miguel said. It'll say a song or something will creep back in and it'll take you back to that memory.
Bloody movies, I'll tell you what.
Movies do it. But do you think when it comes to emotions then, right? Emotions are totally fine for men to have and to express, especially when it comes to loss. Remembering, though, that we are the ones that are in control of our emotions. So do you then think that when it comes to mourning and grieving, do we just let it hit us and become overwhelmed with tears? Or do you think it comes down to, you know what, I'm going to set aside Sad Diavo this week and just think about what I've gone through? Do you think it's a scheduled time to mourn, or do you think it's a just go with the flow? In other words, do you think it's a I'm going to set a time to be in control of my emotions and let it go? Or when it just creeps back in, you just go with it?
Discover multi-award winning real estate with podcast sponsor One Life Property Group, based on the Sunshine Coast, Queensland, specialising in everything from high-end duplexes to multi-residential developments, ensuring the highest quality workmanship. Visit onelifepropertygroup.com.au today to achieve excellence in your next property development.
I don't think you can have any specific structured time, like from 12 o'clock today until 12 noon till 2 p.m, and that's it, done and dusted. In my opinion, impossible. Because like you've said, there'll be all the triggers around you, whether it's a movie, a song, a beach, a car, a dog, a cat, whatever it's going to be. Those things are still going to trigger.
But my point being then, so would you say that that's not in control of your emotions?
To which one? To having the grieving period from 12 noon to 2 p.m. or through the day?
You're driving down the street, the song comes on, you're like, hang on a minute, what do? Do you go, you know what, I'm going to turn that
That's
song
not
off?
being not in control of your emotions. That's
No, but
not
that's
being in
what I'm
control
saying.
of your thoughts.
Yeah, but if so, a song comes on and it's taking your thoughts to there, and you start getting emotional, going, "Oh God, this song reminds me of him or her." Do you then go, "I'm going to turn that off now because this is not the time for this," or do you just let the song go and go, "Oh, mate, I just that was
So back
wow."
in the day, before I knew how to regulate properly, or before I started learning how to regulate emotions properly, I probably would have. Yeah, look, I can remember one specific song that we buried Dad to. I could be having the time of my life, and then that song comes over a jukebox or something, and just, mate, negative emotions. And then the rest of the night was just, might as well written it off.
So do you think when those memories flood in because a song sparks it, or a movie sparks it, or something brings back a memory, do we embrace it?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think like if you know how to have that mental pattern interrupt, so like you feel it, but don't let it bring you down. Be aware of it, and then you can get through it. I actually wrote something down here, and it's something I do say to the kids pretty regularly. It's okay to feel sorrow, pain, loss, emotion, but don't stay there because it'll consume you.
So I had a mate recently who's He's very quickly, his wife turned around and said, "Do you know what? I'm not happy. I'm out. This is it." And I've had a lot of conversations with him, and he's described it as mourning the loss of his wife, the life he thought they were going to have leading into retirement. And one of the things that he did not so long ago, actually, that I was intrigued by was he said, "No, I just need to sit in the pain and deal with it. I'm going to sit in the house today, all day, and I'm just going to deal with my thoughts, my emotions, my everything. I need to sit in this and I need to work it out." And he sat there for 2 or 3 days. And then
How was he when he came out of that?
he was good.
There you go.
He was really good. And and not to say that just fixed it, but as I speak to him, he's like, I have good days, I have bad days, but you slowly have more good days than bad. But he's very consciously working on that. Whereas I think that the typical bloke, or certainly what I would have always done, would be to let's just get busy and forget about it, and eventually it will go away. And all that really does is you do deal with it. It's just over a very long period of time. So I think as scary as it is to sit down there and confront it, as a man to confront the biggest demon of all, death, that takes balls, right? So what could be more manly than that?
Can I add something to that?
Yeah.
I just spoke to you about that before this podcast started and before the boys got here. So last night we went to a local pub around home. There's a young mate of mine whose father passed away. And I was aware that he wasn't the best, right? But the post came quite sudden, so I thought. And his older brother put on the post, thanks for all the love and checking in on us, but can everyone just give us some space, please? And we'll catch up with you, in a few weeks or whatever. So I didn't know, mate, but I seen him last night when I walked into this pub and just give him a big embracing hug. And he just said, "Oh, can I come and sit down with you and have a drink?" I said, "Yeah, no worries." Just knew that he needed to talk to someone, or he wanted to talk to someone, so I just let him go. Blew my mind. So his father chose to self-euthanize in the form of a drink. So the last few days of his dad's life, his father chose not to take any cancer medications, so no chemo, no nothing. He wanted to go out in his terms. He wanted to be in full control. He didn't want anyone, crying over him, or he didn't want to be an invalid to anyone, blah, blah, blah. So I'm listening to him say this stuff, and just listen to you now, mate, like that. For a man that's fully with it, still able to walk, talk, like him and his boys are all musos. The three of them, like the last few days before he went, the three of them are, strumming away. And on this day, he woke up and the sun was shining. He got all his boys out of bed. It was about 5:30 in the morning, even earlier. They watched the sunrise, and they played their hearts out. And the palliative nurse came in. She said, "It's that time, mate." So they all moved, inside, and he wanted to watch Monty Python before he left the planet. And from the time you have this drink,
That would kill anyone, wouldn't it? Just watching that movie.
From the time you have this drink to lights out, it's 2 minutes. So the nurse makes up this drink. All his boys around him, they starting to play, and he just goes, "Cheers," straight down. And then mate, 2 minutes and you're out. And so his youngest boy, well, I'm not going to say any names, he's a bit of a character. He's a funny bugger. He's just like, all this emotion started flowing in. I didn't know what to play. I'm looking at my brothers for a bit of a lead. No one knew what to start. So he just started playing. "If you're going to be dumb, you got to be tough." And he's like, his old man's just lost it laughing. Everybody lost it laughing in the freaking room. The experience that those guys put on, even for the nurse, mate, would have been next level, because that's a doom and gloom moment, right? And general consensus would be it's grief-stricken. It's a miserable day where the old man's led the charge, fully capable, fully in control of his body and his mind. No one's going to be crying. Like I've got, and mate, sorted out all his succession planning, the whole kit caboodle. Listen to that, and I was like, that man there is a staunch leader. Like, didn't shed a tear, didn't show any fear. That's a strong mind.
So just quick. Oh, sorry, John.
sorry.
I'll just ask this real quick.
Yeah.
Just right across the panel real quickly. Mike, euthanasia, yes or no? Do you agree with it?
I'm really, really torn on this, because as I hear that story there, I go, I do get it. I do get not wanting to go out in a quivering mess. But there could have been weeks, or I don't know the full story, but there could have been weeks or months more of those great memories to have with the family. I know how he did it was how they wanted it.
I'll come back and finish it. So you're a borderline?
I think
You're a no.
I want to say no.
I'm a definite yes.
So you're a yes.
100%.
Miguel, you're a yes.
If you want
Mike's
to,
a no. Give me a second. Jamie, what are you?
Yes, in particular circumstances.
I'm not a fence sitter, but I'm leaning definitely towards yes. I would say yes. So you're the only no. So sorry to cut you off. Keep going.
Yeah, I've lost people with cancer with longer. I've seen people go through a terrible road, and I get not wanting to have that pain. I wouldn't want that pain, and who knows when I'm faced with it, it may be different if I'm faced with it. But the thought of when you're gone, right? It's what the people left behind have. You checking out early, I don't know if it's saving them, your family, anything. Like maybe, yes, okay, they won't see you go through that, but the trade-off is the days, weeks, months of good that they're not going to have to see those potentially, depending on the illness, days, weeks, months of bad. But I suppose probably the question is, when do you do it? Are we talking about, oh, well, hey, I've just found out I've got this.
Well, you can't legally do it anyway. Like,
Yeah.
you have to be terminal to do it. You can't just go, okay, I'm going to take a drink and I'm out. Like,
Yeah.
so for him, his body started to fail.
Yeah.
There were certain things going on, and he was given minimal time. So he's like, and on the same token, mate, I've lost a lot of people to cancer too. I've seen them survive another 18 months, 2 years, 3 years, but not one bit of it was quality life. Pain every day. Like the extra help needed and dependence that was needed from other family members, I'd be checking out.
But what you're saying, Mike, though, is you're thinking of the perspective of the people around the one suffering.
Yeah, and maybe I'm linking it too much towards suicide, where I've seen people the results of people that have committed suicide and what they've left behind, and I've seen the absolute carnage they've left, and I know there's a difference. Yeah. I'm just trying to work it out in my head how different that is.
Well, I'll ask this. So Miguel, so you were hearing the story from the son on yesterday.
Yep.
Okay. What was the grieving process of those around that father that euthanized himself with the drink? Were they tears? Was it joy? Was it laughter?
It was joy.
Okay, so that raises an interesting question.
And the reason I say it, so they knew it was happening, right? So they this sounds pretty shallow, and I'm not trying to sound shallow. They had the ability to prepare themselves.
Okay,
go. But we're not. You've got someone that's been with you, mate, for 30, 40, 50 years of your life, and you've got to try and jam pack it into weeks or months if you're lucky. But because of the way that his father constructed it, but there was definitely tears. Like leading up to this day, 100% there was tears, and there was cuddles and crying and fear, and all that emotion played into it. But when he went out, it was a fun time. And so when he had his last breath, they were still playing, still laughing. I actually said to him last night, so when he's laid him down on the couch, mate, what did you just do? And he said, mate, we just cheered.
So in that instance, right, I look at it and I go, I understand what you're saying, Mike, about with suicide, because I've seen suicides in my circle of friends. But is euthanasia the same as suicide? And I'll ask this reason why, right? Because I totally agree with you. When I hear of suicide, my heart goes, but did you think of those around you? Did you think, let's just use an example just so we all can understand it. Let's just say there's a guy our age, married with 3 kids, and he does it. My first train of thought goes, mate, did you even take into account what your wife would now be going through? Your 3 kids that you leave behind, did you even think of that? That's just selfish.
Let's call it straight, right?
Give me a second.
Yeah.
So, but going back to Miguel with your mate, although it's still, let's call it suicide, it's assisted suicide, right? Because you're taking your own life.
I totally disagree.
Yeah, but hang on. So, but his was prepared and everybody else around him was prepared. So do you think in regards to grief, do you think grief is less when there's preparation involved? Because suicide,
100%. Something happens
you take your own
instantly.
life and
Yep.
everyone's like in shock. Oh my God,
Yep.
it was so sudden. I can't believe it. It's selfish. In your instance with your mate, he still took his own life, but it was, guys, this is a day I've chosen.
Yep.
I want you all there. There's going to be food, drink. I've prepped it. Come and celebrate.
Yep.
Because you just said, like, although there was tears, it was more joy compared to us that go to funerals of sudden deaths
Yep.
and go, can't believe he's gone.
Because no one's expected it, right? So
That's what I'm saying.
They've been
So
able to have that open
when
conversation.
there's the expectation there, grief is different. Sorry, Jamie, go.
So with,
Right.
with,
No, no,
with
wait up. I'm fucking saying this. All right? You're exactly right. Because those kids are always going to think I was not enough for my dad to fight it or to do it. That is going to fuck them up for the rest of their life. Like, they're always going to feel like they're not enough. So I'm sorry if you're going to do that. Like,
Euthanasia or suicide?
no, suicide.
Yep.
That situation, absolutely. So my thing with euthanasia is that if I'm going to be a burden to my family,
Yep.
so if I can't remember who they are,
Yep.
and every time they see me, it breaks their heart. Absolutely,
time
no
to check
problem.
out.
I'm okay to go. You know what I mean? If every time they see me, it breaks their heart, then that's fine. But I love my son, and I will fight tooth and nail to be here as long as I possibly can for him.
Yep.
Like, and for the people that you love. So if you're gonna check out, I'm sorry. Think about those people that you're gonna leave behind,
100%.
because
Yeah,
and especially
100%.
if you've got kids, they're always gonna think that they're not enough. If you do that, I wasn't enough for my dad to want to stay here, so that pisses me off. If you know what I mean, like, you got to think about those things. That's just, and I'm talking from one of my best mates who did that to his family, and that's all I could think about was that's what those kids are going to think. How could you do that? You know, get help. So what you're talking about before about your mate sitting down and going in the grief. That's fine, as long as he knows to try to find a way out of it, as you were
Yeah.
saying. Don't wallow in it. Don't, you know what I mean?
Which is what he was doing, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
He was
100%.
giving himself that time to
Yeah.
grieve.
And if you can't get past that, then go see someone to help you, just, lead you in that direction of going, well, yes, there is opportunities out there for you to move on. And no, you shouldn't feel guilty if you know what I mean? Or yes, if your wife doesn't want to be with you anymore, isn't that better for you to know?
Yeah.
Then
Then
so
live a lie.
you can find someone that actually will love you for
And
who you are.
appreciate you. Yep.
So sometimes all it is just a change of perception, a change of mindset, a change of,
100%.
you know what I mean, a different way of looking that can change everything.
Yep.
But
On that
don't
note,
do that
Jamie,
to your kids.
On that note, with actually, this is the way I look at it. Old mate knew that he was terminal. There was no coming back from it. He's going to die, right? Suicide. I know so many people that have done suicide over women, money, poor business decision.
Yep.
So I don't agree with suicide. I've been there myself, mate. Was going to do it, and then I'm like, you weak piece of shit. No, you're not. Look at the young guy that committed suicide off, was it a P&O cruise recently off the eastern seaboard? For, what was it, $8,000 or $9,000 or something that he owed at the casino on the ship. So he jumped overboard while his mum's still sitting there waiting for him to come back from doing whatever he's doing, man. It was I'm not taking the mickey out of this guy. Clearly I don't know him from a bar of soap, but how much pressure he put on himself for the sake of $8,000 or $9,000. Insane. But that's the mindset, right? That's when you get to that point, when you think there's no comeback. And I get what you're saying too, mate, with, the kids are going to think, I wasn't enough. What was their father going through at that point in time? Was he even thinking about the kids thinking that they weren't enough?
Well, I would
hang
probably
on a
say
sec.
not.
Correct. And how do we know that every kid that's lost someone to suicide is going to think I'm not enough? We don't. Just saying.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Let's move on from suicide though, because I think don't want to stay on it for too long. There's so much more we can go into that.
We
but
know what the next podcast is going to be. Seriously.
No, we'll have that as something coming up anyway. When it comes to grief, Rob, when you lose somebody you love, does it change your outlook on life?
Yep.
Okay, if it does or if it doesn't, why or why not?
I think it changes the outlook on life for the short term and the interim until you go back into life and you carry on with your dailies.
So it doesn't change then?
It does for the interim, like I said. Unless you are going to make a physical point of changing what you're doing before the curve, like I did with smoking. I'm not going to wait till I get cancer and then, like, I'm an ex-smoker. And so these people that get cancer from smoking, and everyone says, oh, you poor bastard, it's not your fault. You're a fucking idiot. Simple. There is that much education for us out there now. Do it before the curve, man. Like you've seen, there's that much media on it.
Yeah, okay, let's just stay with smoking then just real quickly. Then. So in the past, obviously education and our knowledge and information on smoking has increased. But you go back, say, 30, 40 years.
It was a cool thing to do.
And somebody died of lung cancer.
Yeah.
Do his circle of friends go, oh, well, I'm going to keep smoking though?
Hell yeah.
Well, that's a moment. So there's no, okay, so.
They don't stop.
Yeah, okay, so that's what I'm talking about. So in some incidences or in all instances, should it change our outlook on life? If you look at the result or the outcome of a circumstance that has taken the life of someone, should that make you rethink and reevaluate where you're at in your own life and go, alrighty.
100% it should.
I'll tell you why, and not to keep referencing back to Greg, but Greg did suffer his third heart attack. And Greg was a larger-than-life character, and I'd had the chats with him, but it's in this last week of losing him, it has made me reevaluate health choices. But I've been down this road many times before. I've been on diet fads and I've changed this and gymmed this and blah, blah, blah. I get it. But it's definitely made me go, again, even though I've been on this road many times before, but it definitely has made me go, okay, do I continue down the same path or do I make a decision to take action to make change?
And what's your checkmate going to be, though? That's what I'm saying. Like, unless you are consciously, it's in your new habitual process that you've created, unless you're constantly working on that, what is your checkmate going to be to pull you up before you go and have those 3 Big Macs? What's going to pull you up before you go and have all that
I've actually
chocolate?
cut back to 3. I was at 5.
I'm not saying
That's
you
family feast.
He's just got rid of the bread.
I'm not, and he's done that. I know he's done that. Well, I'm not saying you specifically, mate, but I'm just saying, like, let's be honest with it. In the entire world, 80% of people live in mediocrity, probably more. 85, 90% of people live in mediocrity. How many people do you guys know sitting right here that start a New Year's resolution and by day 3 or 4, it's gone? Like, but instead of going, you know what, I'll start it tomorrow, they'll wait for the next year for a New Year's resolution. Or I'll start on Monday. Monday never comes. So unless you're, well, I'm speaking from experience. So me personally, unless I'm acutely aware of it and want to make that change and have pre-programmed myself mentally to be aware of it, it doesn't happen. Period. Or it's very reactive. Roller coaster.
Yeah. I'm a big roller coaster, but it's normally more time. If I'm not in control of my time, then yeah, I know what to do and what I should do, but it's actually the implementation that I really struggle with.
Do you help yourself? Sorry, do you help others before you help yourself? Absolutely.
But do you think?
Yeah.
Do you think it would
Before
assist?
you-
Oh yeah, I'll drop around and I'll do that
Yeah.
before. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you
or
think,
work
Dave-
or whatever it is, kids, wife.
If
You can speak now, Wayne.
is that all right, guys?
Yeah,
we know it's your show, but we're taking that.
I've actually forgot what I was going to say now. Do you think though, if it's a change of mindset or a change of outlook on life, do you think if you did take a change on board, that would assist in the grieving process? In other words, use this example again, like in seeing one of my good mates just have his third heart attack, and I should call it a third and final heart attack. In seeing that happen, do I then make this change in order for me to process the grieving part of it? Because what I'm finding is that it's actually, it does make me rethink and be a little more thankful of someone like him. Not thankful that it took him, because it took him to teach me. But in other words, that situation has made me rethink, reevaluate, and go, you know what, I'm actually going to now make this change, and it actually has helped in the grieving process.
Well, I think if you really want to lock it in, what you need to do is actually learn the lesson from Greg, but actually sit down and think about what it would be like if your family lost you to a heart attack.
Yeah, absolutely.
And sit in that pain about how would your wife feel? How would the kids feel? Like, just imagine when you could have done something about it now and turned it around. How are those things going to make you feel? And actually feel that pain, because that's going to be the decision to go, nah, stuff this. Now I'm really good at telling people what to do, but to do it myself, it's a little bit harder. But I think that's the thing, that when you actually fully sit down and go, if I continue on this path, it's a Tony Robbins thing. If I continue on this is what's going to happen.
How dramatically? So just think about that for a second, mate. You specifically. If you checked out tomorrow, how dramatically would your family's lifestyle change?
The payout would be good, which has now got me a little bit concerned.
I was just thinking, geez, my lot would all go shopping.
Lisa's trying to ring me. Look, Lisa's ringing me now. Is he done?
Can you just double check?
Did he drink the drink?
Cheers to Greg.
To be fair to you guys, and we are about honesty here, right? Like, Greg did make some choices, and they were poor choices. Eating habits and lack of exercise. And his doctors told him multiple times, So at what point are we going to be accountable for ourselves?
Well, again, like I said, I know I've been down this road many times with food and stuff like that, but it definitely has made me this week rethink my outlook. What about when it comes to an eternal outlook? When you lose somebody in the grieving process, it does open up that whole can of worms, I'll call it, in regards to what is there after this. Does grieving, or should grieving, make you think of an afterlife? Or does it? Should it?
I've been told that there's a bloody good afterlife. I'll be real pissed off if I get there and there's nothing there. That's going to suck balls. Like,
I'll tell you what, I nearly died.
I'd be more pissed off if the elevator started going downwards, to be honest.
And on the basement floor.
no,
Why is it warm?
All right, so I'll give you a story. So when I was surfing once, and I tried to go
long time ago.
a long time ago. It was bodyboarding too. How embarrassing!
It's not surfing.
Surfing? You got confused or what?
So I tried to duck under the
dream
lip.
world.
So I tried to what they call backdoor. So
Oh, no.
yeah.
This is a noosie, yeah?
All right. No, it wasn't. It wasn't.
Definitely do so.
All right. But because we didn't have money and I didn't have fin savers,
That's
I
why
just,
you were backdooring,
I
because you had
tied,
no money.
I tied rope. Tied rope to the flippers and to the back of my to my ankle. So that way, yep. So
Won't fall in.
yeah. So anyway, so I went through a massive wave. It was during a cyclone, and came in, and then I got absolutely smashed and in the washing machine over and over again, like all the rest of it. And I didn't panic or anything because I was sort of used to it, and I was pretty fit back then. But then what happened is that as I was trying to swim up, how with the flippers you've got the big hole down the bottom, and only a tiny hole down. So they were acting like buckets. So as I'm trying to swim up,
resistance.
I couldn't get up, and I was like, "Holy shit! This is how I'm going to die." And literally, when I made the decision, I was like, "I'm going to have to take a breath." I felt the most peaceful I've ever felt in my life. So no matter what happens, I'm not going to know anyway. And if that's how I feel just before I die, then
Pretty good.
yeah.
I've had that discussion, mate, with and you guys are going to think this is crazy. What would be the best way to go? Fire or drown? And so many people I've spoken to have chosen to be burnt. Like fire, like you are crazy. The sheer pain. But why they've chosen that, they think that by the time the fire overtakes you and you asphyxiate through the smoke, whatever, you die in a few minutes. I said to them, you die in seconds when you drown. It's the fear, though, that people don't want to face because there is really no pain. But we've all been there. I've blacked out diving.
So at the barbecue, when we found out Greg had that heart attack and died, we were at the barbecue in Nambour, and there was a homeless dude there, and I was how's your week, mate? How you doing? Oh yeah, just got out of hospital, had a heart attack. And I was like, oh mate, you're all good? He's like, yeah, no, I died. And I said, oh, what did you see? Nothing. And he looked at me and was like, pretty fucking cool, man, and just walked away.
Wow.
I was like, oh, come back. Come back.
Tell me more.
Then he disappeared into the smoke.
Is that because you had those special mushrooms on the barbecue that night?
After taking 5 sausages after his heart attack. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
But do you think if you're in the grieving process and you lose someone and you don't think of afterlife, do you think you should think of an afterlife? Because if you do, is this the time to prep yourself for it?
Mate, I'm going to Valhalla. You guys can have your fucking heaven. I'm going to Valhalla.
That
Well,
would,
you're asking me a serious question.
okay, so having watched the show, that would need you to go out in a very certain fashion.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to go to Valhalla. No, I was just joking. I'm not going to Valhalla.
And most of them did convert to Christianity when they went to.
Oh, here we go.
So I'm just
Eventually.
saying, saw the light.
Yeah, the next series, they were all Christians, yeah.
Season 6 and ended great. We're also about Vikings, aren't we?
Yeah, we are, mate, of course. I'd like to think, like we've all heard the analogy, you see a young child, a toddler or whatever, and I've heard my parents say it, and older people amongst the community say they've been here before. We've all heard that, right? Because of I don't know, certain mannerisms or whatever. So is there an afterlife? Isn't there? I mean, it all comes down to people's beliefs and interpretations, I suppose, and what they've been exposed to growing up, or like yourself, mate, you weren't a guy, you weren't a man of God until your late teens when your auntie come around and took his out. I'd like to think there's something else there. Be pretty freaking boring if you just check out after 70 or 80 years, 60 of which we give to the fucking government.
Straight to the barrel of the camera.
Yeah, that's right. I'd like to think there's something else there, for sure, where you've learnt more things in this life in a spiritual sense, and you take it to the next life to better the next community that you're part of. Crickets, what do you boys think?
Oh,
Go, Jamie.
yeah. Look, I think so. I think there's something out there. You know what I mean? And even though I wasn't religious when I was younger, I still always thought, well, look, if I do the right thing, then I'll be okay. Plead ignorance. But I know, it doesn't work in Christianity, but that's kind of the way that I thought about it. But if there isn't it better just to do the right thing and have a bit of a legacy,
Integrity, yeah.
anyway?
Yeah, that's something that I've said to people. Like, well, yeah, okay. If I believe there's a heaven and it's going to be awesome, right, and it turns out I'm wrong and there's nothing, well, I went out with thinking it's going to be better, right? Like, even if you don't think there's anything out there, I'd want to do some research because that's a pretty bad end, however you look at it, hey?
Yeah, I'd heard a saying for years and years and years. It's the wrong thing to be wrong about.
Yeah. If there was one thing that you just didn't want to get wrong, it would be that, right?
Well, if this is temporal, which it is, there's an end to what is now. If the next stage from here isn't temporal but it's eternal,
it's what, sorry?
It's eternal. So if what we're in now is temporal and we're stepping into eternal, you'd want to get it right.
Yeah, 100%, mate.
When I was younger, my philosophy was that Earth is a testing ground. So there's lessons that you need to learn
Before you can get to eternal.
and then you keep getting sent back until you learn it. And then once you're actually at that stage, then yeah, you go to.
So you're telling me I'm going to be here for the next 1,000 years? Fucking hell.
Well, some of us are slow learners. At least when you get it, you'll get it.
Thanks, mate.
I've just sent a text to God saying, put you on rotation to keep coming back until you get it right.
until his shoes stay dry and they dribble.
I think. Yep. I think. So, what do you think? You think there's something else after this, mate?
I think there is, but I mean, that's if we just rein it back into AJ's is about here, right? When someone passes, and it makes you think, does you think of all the good times, you think of all the times it could have been. Doesn't it make you feel grateful for what you do have? Seeing someone else has lost it. Greg would have that day had no idea. It would have taken him by complete surprise. Yep. And when I hear, I go, is it me tomorrow?
Yep.
Is it me next week? You don't know when you're going to go. Does it not make you want to
live your best life, right?
Well, stop and smell the roses.
Yeah.
100%. Enjoy that.
Yeah.
And take that moment out and be. There's always going to be grief, but without good, there can't be bad. Without bad, there can't be good. You wouldn't recognise one another. It's one of the few things that we do backwards. Is the relationships here is we get to enjoy them now, and then we have to miss them later. It's one of the few ones we do back to front. So, would you rather have, for Greg, would you rather have never have met him so you wouldn't have to grieve?
Better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at
Exactly.
all. Right?
And that is something that he'd love this podcast.
Mate, he lived for AJ's man, 100%.
You know, hanging out with the guys and his other groups and stuff that he worked with. And like, I think that is part of the grieving process, is celebrating who they were. And that's why, wakes and funerals I think are so important, because it gives you an opportunity to learn other aspects of those people's lives, but also celebrate in who they were and what impact they had on your life.
Yep.
So
I've been to 2 funerals in the last couple of months. Both people I thought I knew reasonably well. Learnt so much at their funerals. Listening to the stories up on the screen, the stories being told from the podium, just phenomenal. And is it not inspiring when you hear that, to go, to hear about the father that died, but the legacy he left his kids? Isn't that something to look up to and go, man, I hope when I go, I've got, my kids will say the same about me. I hope when I go, those people, this many people will be in the room for me. Once that's all we leave behind, isn't it? A legacy.
Certainly is. With the old saying from years and years ago, and we've used it a couple of times in the past, but no pain, no gain. And it's right across the board and everything. Look at going to a gym specifically, because it's a very easy reference for this saying, but unless you're putting your muscle through pain,
no growth,
you're not going to get the gain.
Yep.
Right? No pain, no gain. When I think of pain, and I'm guessing when you guys think of pain too, there's probably not a pain on earth that would be as hard as losing someone you love. It's painful. In reference to that, there's no pain, no gain. And some of the most excruciating pain you'll ever feel is the heartache of losing someone. What do you think the gain is that comes from that?
Appreciation of that, of your loved ones, and how vulnerable that can be. Because if you don't see it, it's the one thing, we haven't done this for a while actually as a family, but every night we'd sit down and we'd say, what's something you're grateful for? What's something you could have done better in? What's something you failed in? Blah, 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 blah. And the youngest fella, like he's 9 now, he's thinking me, oh, I love my mum and dad. Oh, I love my brother and sister. Yeah, cool, mate, that's great. But let's go a bit deeper. What are you actually seriously grateful for today? Could have been, I've seen a bird flying out of a tree, or I've seen whatever it was, right? So until we can actually, until we're hit with an uppercut and understand what we really have got, we don't really appreciate it until it's gone. unless we're actively aware of it and we're making that time to set aside and go, actually, man, I really love you because of blah, 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 and genuinely thank you for X, Y, Z. But how many people do that? Comes back to that whole mediocrity thing, right? 85, 90% of the people in the world would not do that. They haven't been taught to do that. They don't think to do that until it's too late and it's gone.
I think the gain is actually understanding that we're on a timeline.
Yep.
Like, you know, and how do you want to be remembered? And, you know, you don't have all the time in the world to achieve what you want to achieve. And I definitely think that that's a problem where with a lot of people where they're like, oh, it's totally fine. You know, I'll get around. Yeah, I'm going to eventually do that. You know, this is who I eventually want to be. And I think by understanding that it could be taken away, that opportunity could be taken away from you, that I think that's a massive gain to actually, because sometimes that's a wake-up call people need to go, okay, I'm going to actually start being the person that I want to be, you know?
Yep, absolutely.
Anything else you want to add, lads?
Rest in peace, Greg.
Yeah, rest in peace.
Good having
buddy.
the big man here. He's probably really pissed off right now because he's deliberating the absolute shit out of everything we've said, but we just can't hear the poor bastard.
He'd be picking this apart and
Absolutely
telling me all the things I got wrong right now. Well, forget you, Greg. You can't tell me anymore what I got wrong, what I spelt wrong, what I said wrong.
So, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, look, go for it.
One last thing is just I was thinking about it before when you were talking about grieving and it being difficult and all the rest of it. It's just understanding that that's the season you're in right now.
Yep.
Or that,
Yep.
you know,
And it will stop.
that saying of this too shall pass,
Yep.
you know, where
100%.
Those feelings can be so full on, you know, but as we said in that past episode where time doesn't heal all wounds, but, you know, it does dull that pain. So even though you're in pain right now, you know, eventually that pain fades away and that it is okay for you to cry.
100%, yep.
Like, it doesn't mean that you're weak if you cry. Yeah. You're weak if you let it take over your world. So, yeah.
Well said, buddy. Well, look, in closing, I took some notes, obviously, during what we said today, and I've come up with a few things at the end here in regards to men out there that are going through a grieving process at this current time or in the future. If that's not too far away, you might not know, but if you are, this is some things I've just taken notes from what we said. Stay in control of your emotions. Don't let them control you, but also staying in control of your vices, like we said at the start, Miguel, about drinking stuff. Don't let it control you. Give yourself permission to move on. If it's a loved one or something like that and you need that permission, give yourself permission to move on. That's okay. It's not morbid to prepare yourself for losing someone. So it's actually quite a wise thing to talk it out with your partner or with the people around you to prepare yourself and get yourself prepped that if for some reason it did happen sooner rather than later, things are prepared. Increase your gratitude towards the people and things around you. Just take that moment to stop and, what do you say, Mike? Stop and smell the roses. Just embrace it and have a look what's around you and just take in the moment. And the fact that life is temporal, but eternity is forever. And it might be time to stop and think just for a moment what eternity would be like if you got it wrong. Because, again, we're all temporal here, but eternity is forever. Well, lads, I want to thank you for joining me on the panel once again. Been good having us. Really was deep, but enjoyable though too. We laughed quite a lot doing such a different topic to talk about. We laughed quite a lot. So
The most important thing to do, mate. Don't lose the joy in life.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you're bang on there, mate. Well, gentlemen, thank you for joining us here at the podcast. Like I say every week, get along to your AJ's meetup. Check the website, check the socials, see where we're meeting, what times we're at, because. Like one of the points we said right at the start, it's nothing quite like having the right group of people, especially the right group of men around you, especially in times like this. So get along to your local AJs. We will see you there. Gentlemen, once again, thank you.
Thanks for having us, Wayne.
Go and enjoy us your weeks.
Thanks,
Absolutely.
boys.
Cheers, boys.
Boys.
Have a good weekend.